Tension, chaos, drama, and arrests marred the much-publicized Kibra by-election. An angry mob laid siege on 2 individuals in 2 different polling stations, accosting them on suspicion of voter bribery. Security officers stepped in to save the 2, who were immediately arrested and whisked away from the scene. This setting off a blame game between Jubilee and ODM legislatures acting as agents in the polls, each side accusing the other of pushing the voter bribery scheme.
The residents and voters in Kibra have done, and we encourage them to continue doing, is if you find anybody who's holding money who wants to bribe, it is your right to make a citizen's arrest. Yes. And that is something we will do because the police cannot be everywhere.
Kenyans have refused this culture of money, this culture of bribery, and this culture of stealing elections.
And those found in the crosshairs of the allegations had to run for their dear lives.
I thought we had turned the corner of associating violence with elections. I thought we had become mature as a country to a point of allowing others to exercise their democratic right, whether they agree with us or they do not agree with us.
The voter in Nairobi is way smarter than they want us to imagine.
The Orange Party bullish, Kibra is its stronghold, and the vote was to be protected by hook or crook from any rigging plot.
We are in our bedroom, and I want to urge our people to protect our bedroom against infiltration by strangers and outsiders.
Any candidate that is being associated with malpractices could face sanctions.
For the candidates, after months of campaigns, it was now their moment of reckoning as Kibra voters held the final cards that will decide on their fate.
Jukumu ambayo iko mbele yetu ni kuunganisha wana Kibra, kwa sababu hii siasa ya miezi mbili imetugawanya kama wana Kibra kidogo.
All we are looking for is an impartial process so that the people of Kibra get an opportunity to elect a leader of their choice, because Kibra as a constituency deserves better.
Tuko safe, kuna security ya kutosha na wasitishwe na maopponents wetu.
All right, so that was the situation in Kibra. And I want to begin with you, Honorable Ichungwa. I mean, what happened? Why are you in this to win? 11,000 versus
24,000?
24,000?
Well, anybody who goes into an election doesn't go just for sure you go to win. And we went to Kibra to win on the basic assumption that we would have an impartial process, as one of the candidates, Owalo, is speaking about then. I think even he went into that election like every other candidate with the hope to win, even with these 5,000 votes. Even Butichi, who had, I think, 200 or 300 votes, went into that election to win.
Okay.
However, elections are about having an impartial process. And with the kind of violence that you saw being meted out on people in Kibra, you would then question whether it was an impartial process. But you must understand that from where ODM was coming from, and you must not just look at the clips that you are airing there, but it's good that you have aired some of them. You should have aired some of the earlier clips from their Sunday rally, where Sifuna, their Secretary General, was challenging the people of Kibra to a Didmas challenge, a 159 challenge of chasing Didmas Barasa. He also challenged, he had a Boni Halwale challenge. And consequently, you can see what happened on the day of the election itself. Didmas Barasa was attacked by goons. The same happened to Boni Halwale. And it began the day before.
Right.
The MCA for the ward that I was working in, Woodley, MCA Mwanginje here, his house was attacked very early in the morning. Fortunately, a friend of his had tipped him off on the impending attack, and he didn't spend the night in the house. And they attacked the house. It was not just the MCA. They targeted particular people who were working with McDonald Mariga in the campaign.
Okay.
Some of his chief campaigners and mobilizers were attacked the day before and on the day of voting in the morning. The next thing that happened was the rampant violence that you saw. And I think this is something that was premeditated and very well organized, if you ask me. From the Sunday rally to the calls that you hear from the former Prime Minister asking people to guard the bedroom from infiltration by outsiders. It is that kind of talk then and the organization of violence that was perpetrated against the people of Kibra that made it almost impossible, I can tell you, in Woodley.
Okay.
Because I was in charge of Woodley Ward. I can tell you almost the entire morning people were not able to vote until security forces came in to try and arrest the situation when it threatened to get out of hand.
Who was this threatening?
The goons?
The goons. In Kibra?
The goons, and I can tell you without flinching an eyelid.
Are those goons connected to any of these political parties that were running?
The goons were commandeered by Simba Arati. You will remember, and I wish you would have played those clips here.
What makes you say that? Did you see
Simba Arati being told by Sifuna, Sifuna referring to Simba Arati at the rally, and your boys. So the boys, there's goons. Those are the goons you saw attack on Abodin Masbarasa and all the other leaders.
Allow me to contextualize what exactly happened so that you can also hear from Senator Kajwang, who comes from the ODM party. There is a situation between Simba Arati and Didmas Baraza. Let's just take that clip, and also later on we'll hear what Arati has to say.
Simba, usiongee mbaya. How are you? Usiongee mbaya. No, unataka ukimbizwe sasa?
Na nani bwana?
No, mtakimbizwa. I can decide ukimbizwe sasa. Sawa sawa. Unataka? Barana kwa. Simba, sisi we are friends. Yeah. Wewe unaanza mdomo yako leo. Utatolewa nguo hapa ya colleagues. Ya colleagues. Sibisai kura. Utakimbia sasa. Utakimbia na gavana pole pole. Hapana lete
Okay, so we'll describe what that is. But Simba Arati yesterday at the Thanksgiving rally in Kibra spoke about it, and this is what he said.
Naitwa Didmas. Kama sio mimi, leo hii tungekuwa na story nyingine ya Didmas. Mimi ndio niliambia msipige yeye. Nikasaidia yule mama anaitwa Jaldesa akakuja kwa mapawa yangu.
Okay, Senator Kajwang, before you go.
First ask yourself and remind Senator Kajwang when he gave the story about the cartoon of politicians looking at the people and seeing cows instead of seeing human beings. That is simply what Simba Arati is seeing. He's looking at Kenyans and seeing cows. That you can be holding Didmas Barasa's hand and alerting your goons by just standing back and alerting them, it's this one. And actually, you heard him say, naweza sema mtolewe hapa.
But he didn't exactly say it.
Senator,
what was that about?
I was in Kibra, and I was an agent at Ayany Terminus, and it was peaceful throughout, despite the fact that Ichungwa and Mariga passed by in a convoy of motorbikes and youths shouting and making all sorts of, causing all sorts of chaos. Thankfully, you didn't come to Ayany Terminus. You went to Ayany Primary, and that's where there were some scenes. First of all, allow me... Yeah, because you would have had another issue. By the way, I wonder why you did not play the video of Boni's in Jatropa's Khalwale.
No, first of all, respond to the question at hand. because
that then completes the picture.
We see an altercation between, am I allowed to call it so, between Arati and Didmas Baraza. Then Arati claims that he's the one who protected him. What is this? Because people have been saying that with the handshake coming into place to ensure that we no longer have elections that are violent, what would that be?
Sam, I find it very difficult. You know, some things happening in Kenya are unimaginable. That a government candidate, a candidate of the Jubilee Party, and luminaries of the party, including the deputy president, going into an election and coming out crying that there was a militia that was harassing them. And yet these are people who control the state and who control the instruments of violence and peace. I think there's something that is not adding up. But look at the recent by-elections in this country, starting with Ganda Ward in Kilifi. Someone died. And how did that person die? Because Aisha Jumwa and her team stormed an ODM meeting and led to the shooting dead of somebody. in a ward. It's a fact, it's on record, that someone lost a life in Ganda. Thank God that nobody lost a life in Kibra, or at least we have not had reports of loss of life. If you look at history of violence, look at the manner in which Boni Khalwale conducted himself in Kibra. You know, Boni Khalwale, we have sat with him here. I'm very embarrassed on his behalf. He's a fellow senator. He was the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. In fact, the deputy president should tell this country what he has done to Boni Khalwale to convert him into a stone-throwing hooligan from the respected senator and public officer that he has been.
So will ODM, the political party that these two individuals belong to, discipline these two? What will you guys do about it?
Now, the issue of election violence constitutionally is handled by the IEBC. Issues arising from, we have all participated in elections. In fact, my by-election in 2015 was equally violent.
And if IEBC doesn't address this issue, what will ODM as a political party do?
If IEBC does not deal with it, the DCI, DPP, they've said they're going to take action.
It's your bedroom. It's your bedroom.
It is not our country. It is not a sovereign country where we have laws, where we have a police and a judiciary. This is still part of Kenya.
All right.
Zizi, allow me, because I think you've made me respond to Ichungwa rather than allowing me to make my thoughts about Kibra.
Okay.
First of all, Kibra, during our nominations, everyone expected Kibra to burn. We had a very successful and peaceful nomination exercise. Indeed, the part of Kenya that was burning was Ndindi Nyoro's constituency. The day we were conducting very peaceful elections, Ndindi Nyoro was busy beating up Commander in a church in his constituency. So we have conducted ourselves in a very peaceful and in a very organized manner until the day of elections.
All right.
The day of elections, and I tell you, and I repeat, I was on the ground. Part of the chaos was caused by Ichungwa and Mariga, who showed up in the afternoon.
Yes.
Mariga did not come to vote because he has never voted in his life. He does not even know how people vote. They came simply to cause chaos towards the end of the day, to suppress voter turnout, and subsequently to cause chaos during the tallying. And if it was not for the intervention of the citizens, I don't know about the boys, but of the citizens, then things would have gotten out of hand. You must ask Ichungwa what the intention was in driving around in a convoy of 50 motorcycles, moving from polling station to polling station, and he's lucky he did not come to a young terminus.
All right, Mr. Hassan, I'm coming to you in just a little bit. Honorable Kimani, even as you're answering Senator's question, let me ask you the big question, right? What Kenyans have been saying, what Kenyans are thinking. This by-election that we saw in Kibra happening, right? Despite the fact that your candidate, Mariga, did not win, a lot of Kenyans were feeling that this was a battle of supremacy of Dr. William Ruto telling his leader, ODM leader party candidate, Raila Odinga, that if this is what we were able to do now, come 2022, it was a show of muscle. It wasn't even just a matter of Mariga winning.
I think, again, that would be playing into the narrative that ODM wanted to push when the so-called Baba went there and told people, protect my bedroom and don't embarrass me. And I remember at one of the rallies, him telling people, even if you're not voting for Imran, please vote for me. And I asked myself, I mean, are you going back to become member of parliament for Kibra? Or why would you be asking the people of Kibra, if they don't vote for Imran, to at least vote for you, not to embarrass you? Therefore, that's a narrative by ODM.
So it's not a reflection of 2022?
In fact, we are very emphatic on the ground and even in the media that for us, as Jubilee, the candidate who are pushing was Mariga, and the election was between Mariga, Imran, Oalo, Butichi, and all the other 20 or 19 candidates.
Right.
But let us focus more on the violence, because that really is what worries me. The violence is perpetuated by ODM, and I think it's characteristic of ODM. I am shocked to hear Senator Kajwang say that nobody lost a life in Kibra. Senator, I'll tell you, in your own rallies, at least I know 2 people who lost lives in 2 of your rallies. There is not a single rally that you did in Kibra that a life wasn't lost. At least the first 2 rallies, I know people lost.
I think it needs to be factual rather than anecdotal.
I will tell you, first was a lady who was given some money by Imran, and there was a stampede and she was killed by a mob. The second person is a person who died outside Eastlands Hotel, hanging onto one of your vehicles. I can't remember whose vehicle it was, but that was also reported in the media. Therefore, first, send condolences to those people who lost lives. Number 2,
I hope you do so for Ghana.
Send your get well message to at least 10 people that I know who were injured. There's a young man called Ochanda, who is a former ODM youth leader, whose leg was fractured at DC grounds, trying to protect Senator Khalwale. It is very good to talk about Senator Khalwale and make fun of what happened to Senator Khalwale protecting himself. It is good for you to make fun to what happened to Didmas Barasa and your 159 challenges, but you are forgetting, Senator, that you promised us that with the handshake now, the issue to do with electoral violence would be a thing of the past.
Okay.
It is shocking that the person who led the handshake, none other than Raila Odinga, is a person on the ground. On the day, let me finish, Gituku, don't cut me short on that, because let me finish that point, because Raila Odinga, on the day of election, asking people to protect the bedroom, that is not just an electoral offense in terms of you are seen to be campaigning on the day of elections, but it is also an act of incitement. The acts of hooliganism that were sanctioned from the highest echelons of ODM, perpetuated by Simba Arati. And he mentioned going to Ayani. And it's true, I went to Ayani primary.
Allow me to, yes, to wrap in.
I am the only Jubilee member of parliament who made it to Zarangoma.
Started after you started going round.
Senator and Honorable Ichungwa, let's bring in Isaka-san here, because yes, Raila Odinga said that you need to protect the bedroom, not us, but the constituents of Kibra. But what is this that we are seeing? Why is this wave of violence that we see, whether it's instigated by the leaders or not?
First of all, let me start with by saying that whatever that happens, that's taking place, the real contest that was happening is not between Mariga and Imran. It is actually between the teacher and the student, Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
Who is the teacher now?
The teacher is Raila Odinga and the student is William Ruto. Now, going by what was basically in the past, the general elections, the violence is not new to both political parties, ODM and the Jubilee, because violence actually manifested in both of their stronghold, and therefore it is well expected. Having said that, my views about this, or maybe the rest of the Kenyans who are not directly participating in this, there are a lot of positive side and negative side to what has happened in Kibra. I have seen one of the Mheshimiwa lady from northern Kenya who went with her team to Kibra to campaign, and then suddenly she was left alone.
Right.
She was wearing all the very expensive jewelries, high shoes. You know, she was walking alone. She was left alone, and she was walking until finally she managed to come to where the rally is taking place. And in between, she was walking through the narrow street. Nothing happened to her.
Okay.
That was not the kind of image that we used to hear from Kibra. So it was a positive things. The other things that I wanted to say is also on the positive side is both of them. Okay, it is expected that no matter what happens, ODM is going to retain that. It is well expected. And the Jubilee side also, what happened is, it's like when in the military, when you have a new weapon, you have developed a new weapon, you want to a place to test it and see how it happened. And therefore, for them, it was like they have used Kibra to test their strength and basically. So what we got,
because we need to wind up, I want to ask this final question to Senator and Honorable Ichungwa, because I mean, whether you agree that your party caused violence or not, there was violence. Didmas was molested, if I may put it so. We saw Boni Khalwale, in as much as we see a photo of him holding stones, there is another gentleman or a man
protecting himself,
holding rocks against him. And then there are those words that have been said by the likes of Sifuna talking about Kunguni, what Otindo Molo is saying that people are allowed to do citizen arrest, what Raila Odinga is saying that protect the vote. I mean, how do you draw the line that whatever you say does not incite the masses?
Let's look at the big picture. The situation in Kibra, yes, there was a clear winner, there was a clear outcome, and the candidates who participated also conceded defeat and congratulated the winner. Now, that is positive. The nominations were not marred with violence. That is positive. We need to deal with election day issues. Kibra has elicited a lot of negative reactions, which is unfortunate. Looking at the manner in which nominations were done, the manner in which campaigns were done, which were largely peaceful. Now, there's a women rep from Garissa who yesterday, over the weekend in Uasin Gishu, was hurling abuses at people and particularly targeting certain communities as uncircumcised and all that. I think that should not be the kind of reaction we are coming out of Kibra with. There's a lot of negative energy out of Kibra. We must accept that the people have made their decision, and we must accept that we now need to move forward. We must stop this idea of clutching at straws and trying to look for reasons why our candidates lost or not. The issue of violence on election day takes me back to the first subject that we discussed. On BBI, we seem to be focusing on how the executive will be structured. Yet, one of the biggest issues we need to deal with in this country is divisive elections. And I want to make this clear that even as ODM, we complained about the IBC and its capacity to run an election. Now, this time IBC was dealing with just one constituency in the entire republic. You are not satisfied by how they conducted it? No, issues of electoral violence, issues of voter bribery, because that is what prompted...
all those are committed by you, the politicians.
Yes, they are committed by politicians and political players, but in terms of enforcement on the day of elections, IBC must have the capacity to deal with these issues. Going forward, does IBC have the capacity, as presently constituted, to run elections across 290 constituencies and a national election? The answer is no. We must deal with this issue now, because if we leave it to go on for too long, it will be too late. And finally, I think Kimani Ichungwa and the party that he belongs to, they owe this country an apology over the brazen violence and death that occurred in Ganda Ward. They cannot stand on moral high ground to condemn other people when their party and their candidate committed serious violence. That's not just electoral violence. That's criminal if someone has to be killed in the process of preparing for an election.
I think, Gituku, if you begin from Ganda Ward, there was an arrest and there are investigations going on. I think I've seen that in the media from DCI. You would then ask yourself, why is there no arrest or any investigation going on regarding Simba Arati? Is it because Simba Arati is from the same village with the CS Matiang'i? Well, probably that should answer you, and maybe CS Matiang'i should answer and tell Kenyans. But when Dindi Nyoro, because he alluded to the question of Dindi Nyoro, I will say it because when Dindi Nyoro, he alluded to the issue of Dindi Nyoro in Murang'a.
Fred Matiang'i.
I have reasons, and ask me. I have reasons why I'm saying that, and if you allow me.
You have a lot of reasons, but you don't give us that evidence.
If you allow me, when Dindi Nyoro, and he said Dindi Nyoro attacked Commander, it is Commander's goons that attacked Dindi Nyoro in church. And the clips were there. You saw it. It was all recorded on video. What happened? That evening, from this studio, they sent, I think, about 30 officers to arrest Dindi Nyoro. The following day, on a Monday, they sent 150 GSU officers to Murang'a to arrest that young man called Dindi Nyoro.
Is that so?
But Simba Arati, maybe, and I will repeat, maybe because he comes from the same village with CS Matiang'i, and CS Matiang'i must tell the country, because the back, as the minister in charge of internal security, the back stops on his desk. Electoral violence on the day of voting. He may want to point fingers at IEBC, but the Ministry of Interior being in charge of internal security, IEBC depends on the Ministry of Interior to provide security. I can tell you, a number of police officers did very well. But it took interventions from other quarters for some of the police officers to act. You saw in many of the situations, police officers were simply watching as people were being attacked. Those are the same things they were saying in their rallies. That sisi ni Serikal will be there to protect us. And I am sure that happened.
I believe
and we still have a CS and a PS and an IG of police sitting and behaving as if nothing
happened. Senator Kajwang, I'll invite you back to the studio. We'll delve into all those allegations that you're saying.
That is a Jubilee MP.
Please do.
He's a government MP. And he comes from the same village as the president.
Senator Moses Kajwang
told us this was a handshake candidate who was protected by a handshake government.
From the Economic Freedom Party. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time for us. Unfortunately, that's our time.